Good day, everybody. It's October 14th, 2025. It's Tuesday. It's 1:40 in the afternoon. And, man, I don't know if I can walk out there. It's raining. It's just raining very little. And, of course, those clouds are threatening me. Oh, do you threaten me? And, I don't know. I use this gel ink. And gel ink, it runs when water drops hit it. For the moment, I don't feel any rain, so I guess I can take a walk here. So, right now I am at Tomahawks, and actually this is a hotel where Prigozhin was staying. I've said that many times in case anybody is that interested. And it's kind of a big shopping mall. That's the same place I mentioned, I think it was yesterday, when I mentioned that the food court inside sucks. This is of course a little cafe part of the hotel. There's other places, little restaurants that don't belong to the food court. And as I say, they're not very, well, some of those restaurants and things, some of them are quite expensive. So, I don't know. Is it raining? That big building here. Well, it is kind of raining. And in a lot of countries, such as Russia, they don't have any places like overhangs where you can shelter from the rain so much. I don't know why, unless you go to a bus stop. So let's talk about what's going on in the world today. I was watching a video put up by Brian Berletic of the New Atlas. Very, very good. He's absolutely excellent. He's I don't know, you put him on a line with Max Blumenthal being quite factual and very good information. I'm gonna make this guy's running too. Those flowers for me? Oh, he's not going to give them to me. Actually, I've got 60 seconds still. It's a very short place to walk. Yeah, it's starting to rain again. I'm going to have to duck under. As a matter of fact, place to sell flowers. He's got flowers. I'm going to be going to a place over here that sells flowers. He could have saved himself a walk and just bought them there. Like this lady. Looks like a lot of people buy flowers in Belarus and Russia, as you see. And look at their cell phones when they're walking. So you got to watch out for them. I should act like I'm reading my cell phone, and that way everybody has to move out of the way for me. You guys know how it is. There's another guy. The old cell phone boogie. It's like a disease. See? Here's another one. She got flowers looking at her cell phone too. Okay. Sheltering with this guy over here. Okay, so let's see what's going on. Anyway, Brian Berletic. He's a military analyst. He used to be in the Marine Corps, as you all know. And I like his methodology and how he gets his information and what he does with it. And see, he takes a historical content of things, recent history, and he puts things in perspective that way. And he looks for trends and mentions that, so he already pretty much knows exactly how things work. You know, like he has apparently a very strong dislike of Donald Trump, and it's mostly, I think, because I think he believes, and it's maybe true, I mean, he proves his point that Donald Trump is very duplicitous. So I get negative on Donald Trump too, but not as negative as Brian Berletic. And I don't know, does Trump deserve it? Yes or no? There's things I don't like about Trump that I don't think he mentioned. I just, you know, that he's I don't know. I'll be getting into that, you know, at this whole peace process thing. It's his ego and his bragging, and I don't know. Maybe his acting like he is so egotistical is a sign that he has a complex of some sorts. Anyway, I don't know. So, but I doubt it. Yeah, but anyway, Brian Berletic, he lives in Asia. I think he's living in Thailand, but I wasn't sure, so I just said Asia. And so let's see. He was talking about many things, of course, and one of was the CIA. How the CIA started even before 2014 in Ukraine. Of course, this stuff has been going on. Some people put this date back to like 2002, and I think it was 2004. A lot of people say that. And of course, the Soros was very much involved in that, and it's like a Soros project, Ukraine. And of course, it's a Biden project. It's a USAID project. It's a project for a lot of people. So this has been going for quite some time, and it's, I guess, in the planning for a long, long time. It's in a way very sad. It's in a way very sad, like I say, where these people plotting against what do you say? I don't know, against Russia in a devious way. You know, it's one thing to actually maybe dominate fairly, but when you do these sneaky things, the United States with the CIA and USAID and Radio Free Europe, all that kind of stuff, similar things to what they were doing in Belarus. But it's very amazing that Belarus was supposed to fall before Ukraine, and it never did. You know, I have to keep saying how amazing Lukashenko is, that he prevented that. And he seems to like Donald Trump, Lukashenko, and apparently, for what it's worth, Donald Trump likes him, if that's absolutely, if it's ever possible. They might have a thing with these politicians where they respect somebody, but and maybe they even like them, but of course that will not get in the way of these politicians trying to overthrow the governments and things like that, like Trump is doing. Maybe he likes Putin, he likes Xi, but it's not going to stop him from trying to destroy these countries, at least their governments, to try to get a hold of their economy and to make them submit to the United States, and that's exactly what it's all about. I don't know. I would call that being duplicitous, but maybe politicians think differently. But let's keep going. So, back in 2014, that is when the CIA took control of the SBU, the Intelligence Services of Ukraine, and they remade it. They remade it. I don't know if it was in their own image, maybe so. So they got control of the SBU, and they're still in control, according to Brian Berletic. And I would trust Brian Berletic, to be honest with you. And it's particular with these strikes on Russian energy infrastructure all over Russia right now. And a lot of these, of course, there are people that they what do you call it? They're saboteurs, Russian saboteurs, and they get in like drone parts. Maybe these people put it together, or maybe they take the whole drone, and sometimes they smuggle them in. You guys already know about this. They had a whole truck full of drones not that long ago, and they were hitting Russian military bases. And who's to say they're not going to do that now in other cases? And of course, Ukraine doesn't have anything against hitting civilians, sending drones into apartment buildings and things like that, and they don't report that in the West. And then instead they say, oh, that Russia's doing it, when it's really never happening. You know, Russia really doesn't do that. And I think a lot of times whenever they do hit some kind of an apartment building, it's because it's the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians, that's their missiles, because they missed the Russian missile, and that hit, and the Ukrainian one hits into the side of an apartment building. And of course, they're not going to tell you what actually happened. So let's see. So anyway, Russian energy infrastructure, for the most part, all over Russia, they're hitting a lot of refineries and things, and that is, of course, the main goal of using these Tomahawks. And they can fire, well, I'll get to that. I think that's right up here. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Pumping stations, refineries, pipelines, not like the Druzhba pipelines. And I don't think Ukraine hit the Nord Stream pipelines as they're trying to make people think. Germany, that was an operation. I think that was done through Olaf Scholz when it was first put out. That, you know, from what is his name? Seymour Hersh. Olaf Scholz, he marched over there to the United States and said, this is the plan I have. This is what we'll do, and we'll say it was Ukrainians. You know, obviously, because that was just like a week or two after, or 1 week after the Seymour Hersh story was getting traction all over. If you guys remember that. I have to look that up anyway. I don't want to go into the details. So, but I'm talking about being duplicitous. And so the CIA is deeply involved in that, and hitting Russian refineries. And it's kind of You know, as they try to make peace talks, the United States is bombing Russian energy infrastructure. And I didn't say Ukraine because for the most part it's mostly the United States, and Ukraine is just a proxy. I think that most of the work is done by the CIA, is by the United States. And I don't know, maybe Ukraine just has to push the button. They're using US intelligence, satellites and whatever, and use US weapons, long range, well, medium range, or extended range, I guess they call it, ERAMs, extended range, you know, missiles or whatever. So while doing the peace negotiations, and it's much like what was going on with Iran, the United States was doing peace negotiations with Iran, and then they did a massive bombing. Even according to Donald Trump, hundreds of airplanes, F-22s, and they had, he said, 28 tankers, refueling tankers, to refuel the F-22s and F-35s and the, what is it, B-2 bombers. And I don't know how many bombers that he sent. He said he sent there. He said how beautiful it was. You know, this was in front of this was this was on the signing of a peace deal. Donald Trump is talking about how happy he was and how he was gloating over their attack. The United States its attack. Maybe, I don't know. There's a separate one was the Israeli attack, but he's gloating over the United States attack on Iran. It's very, I tell you, I don't even, you feel terrible to be an American when you hear Donald Trump saying that, and he says he's extending a hand of peace to Iran. You know, what is like he was doing when they were doing the peace negotiations, and then he bombed them while the peace negotiations were going on. Massive bombing. How many hundreds of people got killed in that one? Yeah, the peace president. So, and he was also gloating about how many scientists, nuclear scientists, for nuclear energy, by the way, for nuclear energy, and generals and commanders and military people that Israel had killed, assassinated, by the way. I wonder if he should maybe be reminded of Charlie Kirk when he is over there. Because in my opinion, I think Israel did it. They had the biggest and the strongest motive. And so many people, everything leads to Israel on the Charlie Kirk assassination. Who else? Who could carry something out like that? Nobody even knows where the bullet came from. But it's absolutely certain that this Tyler Robinson did not fire. It was not from Tyler Robinson. So that is absolutely certain. And a lot of people are talking about this bullet fragment that was found towards the back of Charlie Kirk's neck. But they didn't find the bullet. Isn't that strange? Anyway, something to talk about here. So what else? And it's just like a lot of this stuff is going on as Trump and Putin were talking in Alaska. The CBU and this, or SBU, talking in Russian now, SBU and the CIA were hitting Russian refineries while they're having these little nice talks in Alaska. Wow. Yeah. Peace through strength. That's another thing that they're talking about. Donald Trump is down there, was down there in Italy, or, gosh, what am I talking about? I'm getting Bidenish. Donald Trump is in Israel, and he's talking about peace through strength, just like Zelensky. Peace through strength. And I wonder how well that peace through strength worked. Still raining. Peace through strength worked with the Houthi, you know, bombing the Houthi. Or, to a large extent, even bombing Hamas. Hamas doesn't have any tanks. They have no tanks. They have no fighter jets. They don't have any helicopters. They have some rifles, and that's about it. And then they have some, maybe they can get a couple rocket-propelled grenades or something like that. And then they have bottle rocket missiles or something. It's absolutely pathetic. And he was talking about Russia being a paper tiger, and they should have been able to beat Ukraine in 1 week. But of course, Russia is trying not to kill any civilians. And you look at Israel. They killed far, far more civilians than they did Hamas. And how long has that gone on? That's gone already 2 years, and Hamas doesn't even have any friggin' weapons. So who's the paper tiger here? Is it Russia or is it Israel? And the United States, as you all know, is flooding Israel with as many weapons as they could possibly give them. Everything that matter of fact, Trump even said that. Everything that Benjamin Netanyahu wanted, he got. He said, there's even weapons I've never even heard of, and and they would get them to Israel. So it's and the biggest bombs, the biggest conventional bombs that the United States has, they gave to Israel. Some of these, Moabs or something, mother of all bombs or whatever. And then, of course, they used them on Iran as well, as you all know. Jeez. Anyway, just kind of sickening stuff. How the peace president is really big into war, and he's bragging out there and celebrating how he's bombing every place. Does this sound like a peace president? Anyway. So what about peace through strength with India or China, with these threats? And right now, I guess it was the United States, I think I talked about it already before. They started putting these sneaky sanctions on China, and then China reciprocated, and then the United States made it public. And Donald Trump says, just out of the blue, they did this and did that, but guess what? The United States did it to China before China did it back to the United States. Anyway. Yes, well, I guess I put this expression, I said, Hamas didn't have a pot to piss in, so it was not very difficult for Israel to get over that, get them, so another thing Brian Beletic was talking about, the only reason why the Trump administration may want to end this war with Ukraine is so he can put more assets into working against China. And so many people in the administration have said that. So what I mean by assets, I don't mean that he's going to start a war even by a proxy with China necessarily. Who knows if they've been trying. But it's to just put more assets, money, in other words. Wow. It's certainly like a hybrid. It's a hybrid war. I guess you'd call it not a war, a challenge. His hybrid challenge against China, and makes you really wonder who's going to win that one. I don't know. And just like he was successful, well, the United States was successful in splitting up the potential relationship between Germany and Russia, and that didn't start or end with the Nord Stream bombings. It's ongoing to this very day. So it makes you really wonder, like Germany is trying to ramp up their people's belief that Russia wants to start a war with Germany. German people are not stupid. And I'll tell you what, I think that's one reason why Merz has got a very, very low approval rating. It's just like in Great Britain or in France. The people are not so stupid. It just makes you wonder how many people actually do fall for that. Maybe 20%. Maybe 20% are actually stupid, or they want to believe it because they want to be nationalistic. They want to support their country. But I don't know. I would not want to support my country based on lies. And that's one reason why I don't really agree with a lot of things that's going on from the U.S. Some guys just came at it. I was thinking this looks like a place where there's no action. Chobot, what the heck is... Well, that's the name of a company. Made in Russia. I wonder what that is. I don't have any idea. Well, anyway, I wonder if I can stand here. But anyway, let's talk about this. These other things that the United States is doing, or in part of this hybrid war. Remember the Huawei takedown? That Donald Trump is the one that did that, and he got all the Western world to boycott Huawei. You know, said they're spying on you with their telephones. I think that was the deal. Their telephones, Huawei telephones. I don't know. But then again, remember back in the old days when Bill Clinton had his problem with Monica Lewinsky, and it's in the court records. It's in the records that Bill Clinton said, "Shh, don't say that stuff on the telephone. A foreign government is listening in on our telephone conversations." And of course, it's well known that that foreign government is Israel. Israel has access to listen in on all phone conversations. I think maybe in the entire United States, they can do it. Israel is very, it's just like Netanyahu putting listening devices in the private toilet of Boris Johnson. I'll tell you what, they're really into that stuff. I've had some dealings with Israelis back when I was in the Caribbean, because they had some Israeli security there, and they kept to themselves and practiced their karate and judo on the beaches, and went around with their submachine guns in jeeps, Anyway, so, but Huawei wasn't the only thing. What about the TikTok? That they took that away from China as well now, Larry Ellison. So that was Chinese, Huawei, and then remember Huawei, and they also arrested the founder of Huawei, I believe he was the founder or the CEO, arrested his daughter, kept her in prison for years in Canada. I don't know if they called her a spy or whatever the heck they did. And just, I guess, yesterday, the Netherlands, they just seized this chip maker, not potato chips, computer chips. It's called Nespera, I believe. They seized it in Europe, at least in the Netherlands. So now it belongs, they just nationalized it and just took all the assets. Now it belongs to them. Incredible, huh? So I'll tell you what, my message for Russians and for Chinese and Iranians, and who knows who else, maybe even in India, maybe Brazilians, that you have businesses in other countries, I kind of think you should think about liquidating a little bit and move to friendly countries, Africa, Asia, South America. Anyway, so let's see. Brian used a U.S. Foreign policy paper from 2008. Wait, used? Well, he was using that. It was from 2018. He was using it to outline some of the other things, like the U.S. does. They put it in policy papers, and they like telegraph, or they inform people exactly what they're going to do in the future. And there was one thing of taking, like they want to block the energy supplies, Russian particularly, of course, to China. And of course they, in this policy paper, they were saying about how they are going to put military bases, and they actually do. Brian Berletic, you were thinking that China is the one doing this, but I guess that's part of this thing that I've been talking about the last few days. It's the cognitive warfare, making us believe that China is the one doing all this, but lo and behold, it's the United States. They got bases, lots of bases now put up within these islands just south of the South China Sea, all over the place, from Taiwan, Japan, Philippines, all over, and it's lining the South China Sea, and a lot of this is made to block energy supplies coming into China in the near future. Wow. And they were projecting this back in 2018, and now they have it. And it's not just that. It's not just oil. That is to even block shipments of things going out of China in case of any kind of a war, so they can hit any Chinese ships delivering cargo, goods to any country through the maritime routes. And I'll bet you that is maybe even, when they came out with that paper, I wonder if that's part of this Belt and Road thing, well, that China is now having with railways and things like that going over the continent. And maybe even this route, I don't know if they can, if this blockade that is the United States is building around China, if that is going to be able to block things going through the Arctic route. because I think it was like more than doubled from one year to the next now what China is sending through this Arctic route. And yeah, as I said, this is mostly because it's from China, and Brian Berletic is very good at analyzing these things. Absolutely incredible. So anyway, he was calling them choke points, places where the United States can choke China. Maybe like not as much as the Strait of Hormuz, but of course the United States is going to bomb the smithereens out of Iran if that gets choked off. Wow. So China is building a pipeline through Burma or whatever to Myanmar. It's already been under attack by the United States, believe it or not. They're using CIA-backed resistance groups, and this pipeline is also part of the Belt and Road Initiative. So, but part of this is it's a little bit too far north, and it's not yet where United States has started building another. They're going to have to build another branch or two somewhere to choke China. This choke point to for a future war with China. So this is actually building, and Brian is actually talking about a future hot war. That's incredible, and who knows when that would happen. You know, this is going to still take a little while for things to cool down in Russia. I don't know if the United States is going to be having these two wars going at the same time. And we're all looking at what's going on in Venezuela, and we're looking at what's going on in with Iran. And the United States still has a lot of their assets over there in the Middle East. And they sent a lot of assets there by Venezuela. I don't know. That would be kind of unwise, I would think, to be having two wars going like that at the same time. And Venezuela, you know, they're probably a little bit more pitched for jungle warfare. I don't know if the United States is going to be committing so many troops in there. They're going to probably do a bombing campaign and then try to do like what Russia was trying to do in World War II, and they were actually successful. They took over Holland with very few troops and in a very short period of time by just parachuting people onto the capital and taking over the capital. As I was mentioning that already, because it's very phenomenal. And they were parachuting mannequins, store mannequins, all over by the borders of Holland, and the military was going wild, sending them out to all these points, because that was right after the first airborne troops were used in Norway by Germany at that time, and everybody was in awe and shock, you know, people coming from the skies, soldiers coming down from the skies, and so that's why they were using these mannequins, because, you know, Holland knew about that, and they were freaking out, so they wanted to get these soldiers that were parachuting in, which were not soldiers, they were mannequins, so to prevent some kind of a thing like that. And in the meantime, they sent the real troops on to the capital, Den Haag. So yes, so I watched another video from Emil Kosman. I haven't seen any from him for quite some time, unfortunately. He's very good. And he mentioned something I said at the very beginning when Donald Trump became president, that powerful people put Donald Trump in there, and I was saying Israel, and I don't think he necessarily specified, but he said powerful people, and I think it's that put Donald Trump in there, and of course it was for exchange of Donald Trump during doing certain things. So it's not like me, I'm the only one that knows this, I mean that believes this, and I'm nearly positive. Anyway, Emil Kosman is saying that they have Donald Trump just like Max Blumenthal by the balls. I guess I'll say. You know, they put it in those words, in the ball, by the balls. You know, and so, and I'm thinking, well, I think he was saying that Donald Trump is obliged to, from these powerful people, to bring a Ukrainian victory, and that might be the case. That really might be the case. However, as Julian Assange had said, that the the objective of the war is not necessarily to win the war, but it's the war itself, because the military-industrial complex makes a lot of money. That could be very well the case in this case as well, because those are some of the most powerful people in the world, and they steer the politicians big time. They got a lot of money to put into politics because they're getting it from selling all these weapons all over the world. Very dirty business. Maybe you should watch the first Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. Just to remind you a little bit about that, maybe, and how that whole thing works. But I don't know if it's about a victory. I'm kind of wondering about that, because Donald Trump, he said to Putin, he said, end the war, or else we will give Ukraine Tomahawks. But of course that plays right into that as well with the military-industrial complex, you know. And what he means by Donald Trump ending the war, he means a surrender. That's what the Emil Kosman said. He wants an unconditional surrender of Putin to Ukraine, basically, even though Russia has the upper hand by far. That's incredible. But maybe Donald Trump's task is to keep Ukraine in the fight. And he knows that Russia is not going to bow out and surrender. So the word is out, and it has been leaked, that the United States, it's not just from Donald Trump saying he's made his decision already, but word is out that it's leaked that the United States is going to supply Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. But, well, I'll get to that. It's coming a little bit later. It's not that many. I guess that I'll get to that. But anyway, as this all works out, and as I said that I saw in history books, and old history books, I don't even remember how old they were. They were quite old history books. And I was so shocked, like I said, when I saw even back hundreds of years, centuries ago, that there was a big objective to, well, then it was to keep the Slavs out of Europe. They have a hatred of Slavs. And I think in large part the Eastern Slavs, but I think that meant Poland as well. And some people already know this. Robert Fico knows this. Robert Fico of Slovakia. He knows that a lot of these people in the West, they hate Slavic people, and they want to kill Slavs. They want to kill Slavic peoples. You know, and it makes you, well, what the heck? Why do they want to do that? I guess there's more for us. You know, it's like bank robbers. You know, you get a whole group of people, like maybe 8 people. You've seen these movies, and sometimes they kill some of their fellow bank robbers after the hard work is already done, because then they have more to split up amongst themselves. You know, they want Russia's resources and they want Ukraine's resources, and that's not even a secret. And they know that, you know. And like I said, Germany was really highly pissed off when Donald Trump was supposedly making these deals with Zelensky to get the rare earth minerals from Ukraine, because they wanted them. Germany wanted them. They wanted lithium. They wanted the lithium of the Donbass, of course, for their electric cars, you know, BMW and Volkswagen electrics and all that, blah, 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 blah. And they wanted the nuclear power from the Zaporozhye, you know, the biggest nuclear power plant in all of Europe, because Germany had shut down all of their nuclear power plants. And that's on and on. There's more to it than that, too. There's a lot of shipping lanes, and of course, Great Britain really wants the Crimea. They wanted the Crimea for well over 100 years. And I think I talked about that in one video as well. So, but anyway, some of these goals that Donald Trump is probably supposed to keep up. One is, of course, to kill the Slavs, to kill as many Slavs as possible. That includes Ukrainians, by the way. And they love it, just like Lindsey Graham. He said the best thing is that they're killing Russians. And, of course, at the same time, they're killing a lot of Ukrainians. And that's, you know, to get rid of as many people as they possibly can, so when they come in and they sweep up all these resources, there's less people to fight them, I guess. Yeah, wow. And of course, the second reason is, of course, to feed the military-industrial complex, to make bombs. By the way, that's jobs. That's American jobs. And that's more money for the politicians as well, in campaign donations. Israel has a big military-industrial complex as well, as you all know that. Wow. And Lindsey Graham, that's nearly where all of his political donors come from, is from the military-industrial complex. And that's why he loves a war. He loves all wars. Wow. Okay. Remember when Trump said, let's see, 1 week ago, that he has made his decision about Tomahawk missiles, but he wanted Europe to tell him how they will be used, you know? And what do you think? What do you think? And Dmitry Medvedev, as you all know, he put up his joke tweet at that time, and he said, oh, they're going to be used on Berlin and London and Warsaw. You know, obviously they're going to be used against Russia. They're going to be used against Russia. And the main thing that they want to use them, Donald Trump, he's probably trying to make people think that he doesn't want them to be used on civilians, because a lot of people know very well that Ukraine purposefully kills civilians with missiles. And of course, that's a huge and expensive missile just to kill civilians with. But of course, the whole objective is to, like what the CIA is helping Ukraine do at this very day, it is to hit the oil refineries and things like that. So look at this. Look at that. I'm like watching the movies, as you see. So yeah, let's mostly to destroy Russia's infrastructure. And of course, like Donald Trump believes for one reason or another, that Russia is either going to surrender. He doesn't know the Russians very well. And that's peace through strength, baby. And of course, that's what Zelensky keeps talking about. Yeah, peace through strength. That's work. That's, yeah. So he wants these missiles to do that sort of a thing. I'll tell you what, if he gets those missiles, and of course, he's not going to be firing those missiles, as you all know, and it's a very well-known fact, it's the United States that's going to be firing those missiles. And I feel sorry for what is going to happen to Ukraine. And let me take back. Putin is best to let it be known why that would be happening. It's because of Zelensky begging for all these missiles. There's so much about Ukraine I've heard about in the past day since I've made that video yesterday too. Let's see. Radars. On the radars, these missiles, I guess they look like incoming intercontinental ballistic missiles, the shape and all that of these Tomahawks. So a lot of people, experts even in Russia, are saying, how are we to know what they are? And of course, you can put nuclear weapons on Tomahawks as well. So, and the range is really, really far. So if you're firing these from all the way, in western Ukraine, in Odessa, the southwestern corner, you can fire them way past Moscow, and even on the far side of the Ural Mountains. So they can hit all of the missile factories and the tank factories and all of that, which is in the Ural Mountains areas. They can hit all of them, the Russian manufacturing of weaponry. And of course, Russia probably has some air defense systems put up there. Anyway, but anyhow, it makes you wonder. They have these this umbrella, so to speak, in Russia, that when there is a nuclear attack, that they sense these missiles that are coming in, it works automatically. No person has to trigger it. That automatically sends nuclear missiles in return. And apparently, a lot of these Tomahawk missiles, they take time to pack up and leave after they fired their one missile. And that's going to give Russia time to hit them. And I tell you what, Russia's going to come up with something where it's going to be an immediate strike after some place, the location, sends a missile into Russia. And it's going to be, they're probably going to be doing it in civilian areas and then say, look, Russia's hitting civilians. Wow. It's going to be messy. It's going to be messy. Going to be messy, I'll tell you that. And I guess you can thank not just Zelensky, you can thank Donald Trump and, of course, his compatriots in the CIA as well. Because it looks like they are going to send these missiles. What do you think? Think about this. Donald Trump is saying, oh, I've made my decision, sort of, kind of. And I tell you, do you think if he decides not to send them now, do you think he's not going to send them maybe in 2 more months? Or whatever. What about the Taurus missiles from Germany? I don't know if they've sent those yet. Merz said he's going to do it in secret anyway, so maybe they're already there. Yeah. And I think it was, I don't know, it was, no, I already mentioned that about what's his name? Emil Kosman. His belief is that, and it's probably true, because it's been true in the past, that they're trying to get Putin to surrender to Ukraine, even though he has got the upper hand big time. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And of course, what Zelensky means by a surrender is to withdraw all of the Russian troops out of all of these territories, and after of course Zelensky and Poroshenko were killing all those ethnic Russians in there, and of course there's a lot of killing that goes on anyway. In any place, remember that when Russia withdraws from some of these places, they did these strategic withdrawals, I think it was like 1.5 years ago, and the Ukrainians killed a lot of people. Remember Bucha? It was the Ukrainians that killed a lot of people. They killed anybody that accepted, say for example, MREs, food packages from Russia. Anybody that accepted them was killed when the Ukrainians moved in there. Yes. So now let's get to this peace signing deal. If any of you saw these videos, some of these videos of Trump's visit to Israel and then to Egypt, to me it was like a sad display actually of some of the worst of humanity, of us people. I'm not just Donald Trump, but all humanity, and how you can act. All these people that are groveling, the Israelis are groveling to compliment and flatter Donald Trump. And if you even see this, you see even, I don't know, everybody is trying to flatter Donald Trump. And some people, maybe they have their own plans. Lukashenko even flatters him. But you have these people that are basically daddy, calling him daddy, like Ruchi. Oh, and it's really sickening. It's really sickening. But, Trump is eating it all up. I am so great. I am so great. Look at these hands. Look at these hands. Look at how great I am. I am the Trump. When you get off the toilet, it doesn't stink because I am Trump. And that's what he wants everybody to think, that everything he touches turns to gold, including toilet seats, by the way, as you all already know that. So, and I think I've heard that they do. Maybe he's the Midas touch. Trump, the Midas touch. Why don't they call him Mr. Midas? What is Benjamin Netanyahu calling him? Cyrus the Great, or whatever, something about a Persian that set the Jews free, or whatever, back in the 70-year captivity, I believe, back in Babylon days or something like that, when the 2,000 Jews or something, I think that was all there were, approximately 2,000, maybe less than that. And but anyway, but guess what? It was a Persian. It was an Iranian. So why? That's why Israel hates the Iranians so much, is because they freed them. It's incredible how history works, isn't it? So, but anyway, everybody groveling and lining up to kiss Donald Trump's ass. Can I use my tongue? Can I use my tongue, Donald? I don't know. Sickening stuff. But then again, of course, Trump showed how manipulated he was, by Benjamin Netanyahu, by saying how he, looked like Gandalf. He had the same nose and everything. But even from behind. But he was showing how he destroyed Iran's nuclear weapons factories or something like that. And the IAEA were there, as many people were, and as Tulsi Gabbard even had put out, through all investigations, there is absolutely no evidence, Nothing. There's nothing that shows that Iran was building any nuclear weapons. But Donald Trump got rid of those non-existent nuclear weapons that Iran was not building. So he's a big hero. It's absolutely incredible. And as I think Iran was saying, it is nothing about that. Of course, it is to stifle Iran's future, their advancement, the advancement of Iran. And of course, that's in so many words what Donald Trump is doing anyway to all these countries, to India, to China, to all of these countries, to even Russia, is to keep everybody down. You know, I call it the Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding effect. If you guys don't remember that, it was like, I think there's two young ladies, they were vying to be part of the Olympics in ice skating for the United States. And I think one was a little bit better, she was definitely prettier, was Nancy Kerrigan. And Tanya Harding, sadly she comes from Oregon, because, you know, that's my neck of the woods, kind of up that way. And so Tanya wanted it so badly that I guess she arranged to have somebody whack Nancy Kerrigan on the shins really hard with an iron bar or something to put her out of the competition. So, you know, that's how the United States is number one, baby. You sabotage the competition. You whack Russia, you whack China on the shins with an iron bar to make yourself look at me. Sounds like, makes you wonder, would Donald Trump do something like that? I don't know. It looks like tariffs is an iron bar of some sorts, and Ukraine is an iron bar in Europe of some sorts, right? But of course Donald Trump didn't start the Ukraine thing, and he didn't really start that with China, but maybe he is going to use that iron bar just like his predecessors. I don't know. Anyway. So, but Donald Trump was also bragging. He was bragging there about, he said, hundreds of jets, hundreds of airplanes they sent. I think he said 28. Did I write it down here somewhere? 28 refueling tankers. Refueling, 28. In, you know, airborne tankers to fuel these F-22s and B-2 bombers. I don't know if he said 500 planes. I should have watched that video over again. I kind of deleted it. I was thinking, what the heck? It was like a huge, huge invasion. And he said a lot of these B-2s, I don't know, did they fly from the United States? I don't know. He said they flew many, many hours, you know, and they had to refuel them, you know, numerous times or something on their way to bomb Iran. Boy. And we obliterate it, like I said. You know, that's when he was probably at the same time bragging about the death of all these scientists, you know, Iranian scientists. Remember, they were guys going by, you know, Israeli agents or whatever, they're going by in motorcycles, and at stoplights they would have a magnetic something, and they stick it on the cars with a bomb on it and drive away and blow up these cars that had scientists in them and things. All sorts of other things. That's some really nasty stuff. It's the Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding sort of a deal. And they weren't even making nuclear bombs, so yeah. Something for you young guys there. Young ladies. Okay. What else? Yeah. So I said they all knew that there weren't any nuclear weapons there. Donald Trump is just playing stupid. So you got to also remember, a lot of this time, the stuff that he says, he's just playing stupid. It's not like, I don't think he's that stupid, but he plays stupid, Donald Trump, because he's got to serve his masters, and his masters, maybe one of the things was to bomb these things. Maybe that was one of the main reasons why he was allowed to become president of the United States. You know, instead of the cheat. You saw how successful they were in cheating to put Joe Biden in. I guess I'm allowed to talk about that now on YouTube. You can say that, you know, it's actually, if any of you guys were watching all that stuff, you know, it's really strange. Donald Trump was way ahead, like I say, at 11 o'clock at night when you went to bed. if you woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, magically, I think it was right at the time of 4 o'clock in the morning, Joe Biden was zoop. The polls had been closed since I think 7 in the evening, but then it makes you wonder how in the heck, you know, most you thought most of the votes were counted except for maybe the mail-in ballots, and they shipped those in. So it's kind of strange. Everybody that mailed in ballots voted for the Democrats, for Joe Biden. I don't know. I guess that's how that works, I guess. So, yeah, like I was saying, that the goal, whether it's Iran or Venezuela, India, Russia, the goal is to ensure U.S. global dominance. One ring to bind them all. I think that's what they say in that thing. To in the darkness bind them. Shit. Wow. So for economic development or military, you know, the United States wants to destroy anything like that of other people. And, you know, if you have any resources the United States wants, boy, I guess you're better off to have a nuclear weapon. Poor Venezuela. And some people say that the biggest oil reserves in the entire world are in Venezuela. Some people say that. At least in America, it's at least known. There's a huge amount underneath Port-au-Prince, right around there in Haiti, and that's, like I said in other videos, that's why the United States, after they had that earthquake, and I think was it when was that? Some years ago. The United States reacted to that earthquake faster than they reacted to hurricanes or floods in the United States, faster than they reacted to any disasters in their own country. They were there and lickety-split. Even the Israelis were there. And I was talking about that. Before, they had some young boys going into the Israeli doctors' tents. They were only there for less than 1 week. And they noticed that these boys didn't come out of the tents, these Israeli tents. You know, but they did come out. They came out the back way, through the back. And maybe some of them did not come out alive, even though they'd only had minor scrapes and bruises. Maybe just the boy was taken or whatever like that, but they didn't, you know. There was a lot of people were hectic and chaos going on right after the earthquake. So, but it turns out, and a lot of these, anyway, it was organs. They wanted organs. So a lot of organs were taken from people, young people, that went into the Israeli doctors' tents to be treated. And like I said, guess who are the biggest in the organ trade? The two partners, and they're very good partners. Trust me, they are very good partners. Ukraine and Israel. That's why they are so much alike. And I tell you what, they're very much both Nazis. Ukraine, at least for the most part, a lot of people know and they recognize them as Nazis, but the Israelis are undeniably also Nazis. They just don't call themselves Nazis, but they act exactly like that. So let's see. I already talked about the breaking up of alliances. Of course, that is a large part of this too. Alliances, what I mean alliances such as the production capacity of Germany at the time and the energy supply of Russia, and that had to be broken off. Unfortunately, they created an even bigger monster. China has a much bigger productive capacity, and they can't get enough Russian oil and gas. So, and now you have India coming on to that as well, and the U.S. supplying Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. These are to be used to hit these lines, and we'll see. I believe this is going to happen, and they're going to be hitting these things. The supply routes on the way to China, for example. That's going to be a far cry, because you have to, I don't know if most of them get that far to the Caspian area. I think a lot of that oil and natural gas originates in the Caspian area that goes from Russia to China. So we'll see how that works out. Brian Berletic should chime in on that one. Maybe another one that wrote the books, Pipelinistan, which was the investigative journalist from Brazil, Pepe Escobar. He probably would have a good take on that too. It's really cold. I'll tell you what, I am cold, baby. Wasn't that cold when I left the house. Oh, I'm starting to shiver. I should go walk over there and go back in that shopping mall and walk around there. You guys would probably like that, wouldn't you? Gee, it's almost an hour. I got to try to get through this. Okay, so let's keep going here. Strange, they had this, in this peace signing. There was no Israel there. There was no Hamas. Look at this military guys over there. Oh, they're girls. Are they all girls? Ah, no, there's boys there too. Just a couple of girls. I think they're just cadets anyway. Probably too young. They're like Epstein age girls. So let's see. Anyway, the United States is also, as you all know, they're going to be trying to break up BRICS. And that's not a secret either. Donald Trump has pretty much said that. He is going to break up the BRICS. And that's one reason why he is doing all these tariffs against India and China and doing this and that and the other thing. But then on the other hand, he says, oh, I'm great friends with them. I get along. And they write back to him and say, my great friend Donald Trump. Come on. I don't think Z has done that. I don't think Z is... I don't know. Let's see. I don't think the Chinese go along for that fake stuff. I think when they are friendly with you, I don't think they are faking and lying to you. That's going to be something to be watching. I'm going to maybe be watching that amongst other Chinese, because they are not playing, as far as I can see, any sort of a game like that with Donald Trump right now, like everybody else is. Oh, the great Donald Trump and everything. I mean, all leaders are doing that. Russia and everybody. Placating his ego. I don't know, maybe I don't know if they're afraid of Donald Trump, but they're just trying to maybe stay on talking terms with Donald Trump, because when you don't talk, you don't get anywhere. Look at Joe Biden and all these, and George Bush II, of course. He's the one that started all that. If you don't like somebody, if they're a rival, don't even talk to them. So anyway. Oh no, he was doing that with terrorists. Anybody that's not going to negotiate. We don't negotiate with terrorists. I think that was the phrase that he was using. So no Israel and no Hamas and no Iran. And Donald Trump saying, I am stretching out a hand of friendship to Iran. Yeah, at the same time bombing them. I mean, like I said, I don't think China or Russia or a lot of countries, they don't act that way. It's coming to be that's a hallmark of Donald Trump. He is your buddy and stretches his hand out to you while he's dropping bombs on you and things like that. Terrible. So, the West, anyway, in general, has always cheated Iran. I believe there were some dealings with France and Iran, and they really cheated them. I think they did something, and they never paid Iran, or never gave them something that Iran paid for. I can't remember that. But the West does that in general, too. That's particularly to Iran. They do it to Russia. They do it to any of those. So they have their own little bunch of countries that they're trying to screw over as much as they can. So, like they cheat Palestine, Israel does it endlessly. It's going to be interesting to see if Donald Trump follows through with any of these promises that he makes with any of these countries necessarily. He's already been duplicitous by saying, I want to be your friend, and then bombing them. So I don't know. That's not a good track record yet. Okay. So, and Trump, just like a lot of people, all they talk about is the return of these 40 hostages or so, these Israeli hostages. And they never talk about the Palestinian. What was it? 13,000? Wait. I thought I wrote it down here. It was yesterday. I think it was like 13,000 Palestinian hostages that Israel. Some of these people, they've been captive since they were 8 years old, like little boys throwing rocks at tanks or something like that. And they put them in these prisons. And women that didn't do anything. They just happened to be the mother or the sister of some suspected Hamas person or something, so they put them in prison. Really nasty people. But anyway, I think a lot of them were released. But of course, what did they release them to? A bombed out house. nothing but a big pile of rubble. They have no homes to go through or nothing. And you know, everybody's celebrating these rich Israeli, you know, that have free health care. Everything is free, paid for by the billions of dollars that the United States sends to Israel, so that Israelis don't have to pay for health care, and they get free coverage, full coverage health care, amongst other things. Probably full pensions and all that stuff too. I'd like to get a pension. Don't have that. Okay. So what else here? So no sympathy for the Palestinian hostages. Wow. And what about the 400,000, which is what is a lot of people estimate? I'll just be conservative. Let me say 300,000 Palestinians or Gazans that are not accounted for during these bombings. 300,000. They say, oh, 67,000 dead, or whatever the number is now, I don't know. But of course that is definitely, and everybody agrees to that, that is a definite understatement. There's even Israelis that say that is definitely an understatement, that it's at least 300,000 that are just underneath the rubble and nobody's found them. But they don't count them as dead because they haven't got the bodies yet. Or maybe some were blown into millions of pieces, you know, pulverized from Israeli bombs. Really terrible. Yeah. Oh, I should have mentioned, you know, all of these deaths of these, the killing that Donald Trump is doing, like of these people in these boats, for example, and supposedly drug dealers from Venezuela or whatever the deal is, and they're from Colombia as well, and all that. There's no due process, and like I said in the last video, Rand Paul was talking about that. No due process. They did that's the American way. I thought it was the American system that you get your day in court. But guess what? I guess that's not the what, they're foreigners. So they're not a part of the American system. Yeah, right. Yeah. So then how can, if some other country does not do things the way America does it, how can the United States be angry at those countries for not doing it the American way, when the United States doesn't do it the American way when it's foreigners? Huh. Well, just how that is. Like I said, the United States has killed a lot of military leaders and stuff too. And I don't even know how many people he was killed. 16 other people besides Soleimani, back when Donald Trump bombed them, when Soleimani was trying to cement a truce, a peace agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran at that time. And Donald Trump bombed them. I think they were coaxed. They were coaxed to go there. It was a fake thing. They did it on purpose, just to bomb Soleimani. Wow. Welcome to the USA, baby. Okay. So, I was going to mention, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but, you know, Hamas was nothing more than a tool for Israel. And how did he do it? A lot of times, you know, the money that Hamas got, you know where most of that money came from? You would think, oh, it came from Qatar. A lot of it came from Qatar. But you know who put that money in the banks in Qatar? It was Israel. Israel was the one that founded Hamas, as most people know. And they were funding Hamas almost right up to the day of October 7th, 2023. Maybe like a week before that. Maybe that was when the last time the Israelis sent a whole bunch of money to Hamas, at least at that time. Maybe during the war as well. Maybe they were funding them as well. Absolutely incredible. Some people say that you need anti-Semitism to have Zionism, if you guys can understand what that means. And it doesn't take much thinking, and you'll know what I'm getting at. Just think about it for 1 minute. Okay. What else do we have here? Tony Blair. Can you believe this? Tony Blair. I guess he's been picked that he will probably be the governor of Gaza. at least the interim governor of Gaza. Can you imagine that? Tony Blair. They hate Tony Blair with a passion, so they're going to make him the governor. Wow. I guess how many security, I guess, is Tony Blair supposed to get? I don't know. He better have at least 100 security working around him. Who knows? And don't let them have any missiles, because it's going to, wherever Tony Blair's going to be working, a missile is going to be landing there. Wow. So, hardly raining at all. Maybe I can walk around a bit here. Okay. Alex Jones, he was talking with Tucker Carlson, and he was mentioning the corruption in Ukraine. And he, of course, specifically came out first talking about money laundering. And I don't know, he mentioned drugs, huge, I don't know, other people have also been talking about like sex. So many prostitutes and sex things going on all over in Ukraine. And yeah, that was, Alex Jones talked about that as well. And he's talking about how it's like a Sodom and Gomorrah. And as you all know, Zelensky, he sent some boys to Starmer, to Keir Starmer, the leader of the UK. And Katie Hopkins, I believe, I don't know if they put her in jail yet, but she's in big trouble. And not because of this, but partly because of this too. But anyway, she was mentioning the bum boys, because these guys got mad because I think Keir Starmer did not pay these male prostitutes, and so they destroyed some of his property. I guess maybe they burned a garage or a car or something. I guess there were three of these homosexual or whatever boys that Zelensky gifted to Keir Starmer. So anyway, lots of calls between Trump and Zelensky lately, and they're supposed to have a meeting on Friday, and a lot of this obviously is about these Tomahawks. So we're going to see what's happening. If they're going to do this on secret, when are they going to send them or not? Okay, and these Tomahawks, like I was going to tell you, it was leaked that there's the United States has 4,150 Tomahawks, and they're only going to be sending somewhere between 20 and 50 to Ukraine. And in the year 2026, they're slated to only build 60 of these Tomahawks. But a lot of these Tomahawks, I don't know, but what do you call a lot? Some of them anyway, are slated to be used, catch this, slated to be used in Venezuela, on Venezuela, let me just say that. So they have Tomahawks down there, they're ready to launch onto Venezuela, if need be, and it might happen, it might not. You never know. I'm still hoping that there's going to be something resolved there where they're not going to bomb Venezuela. And I've mentioned in other videos, yes, there is some drug dealing or trafficking or something coming through Venezuela, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot more of it going on in the United States than there is in Venezuela, to believe it or not. Some of this, like I said, it's maybe getting supplied, some maybe is getting supplied to the United States, but it's much smaller than some of these other countries. You know, that's pretty well known. Colombia was really big into a lot of drugs and things like that. And like I said, where I lived in the Caribbean, I knew, because I knew that there was some of it coming up. And because one of the first places it might go is to the island where I was actually working on. And I know that sometimes it did come up through there. There's a couple islands in there that it came up through. And I know about some of those things, but it's not so much, to be honest with you. But there's a lot of marijuana that is coming from the main island of the country that I was staying in, which was on the main island called St. Vincent, from the country St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But a lot of that went to like St. Lucia, and they had these speedboats, not maybe as fast and as sleek looking as the ones that Donald Trump was bombing, you know, with pointed things and all that. But they had them going to the next island, which was St. Lucia, and then maybe it would go on to Antigua, and maybe even up to Puerto Rico. I don't know exactly, but most of the time they just were going to, all I knew of was it was going to St. Lucia, and from there, I don't know. And they had CIA, of course, working there, and I met a couple of those guys, even though they didn't tell me they were CIA, but they were CIA, and they were there to monitor that. But as I say, that was only marijuana. And in the old days, the United States would come to that island, and they would bomb, well, incendiary bombs. They would, by helicopter, and they would try to burn the marijuana fields from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because it competed with their marijuana from Panama in those areas down there. So they did that to keep the price up, because the marijuana that was coming from St. Vincent and the Grenadines was much better quality than the marijuana that the United States was growing to send to the United States and all that. That movie with Tom Cruise, American Made, that's, I think, something about how the United States themselves was bringing in the marijuana, or not, I think it was in cocaine and stuff like that, and the terrorists and all that, to be trained in the United States to be used against, rival drug lords and things like that in South America. So you'd have to see that. Sent to Arkansas, by the way. I think Bill Clinton was the governor at that time. Matter of fact, yes, he was, definitely. That's a decent movie anyway. Okay, what else? Let's see. But as you heard towards the beginning of this, when this Ukraine conflict and all that the United States has admitted that they were using this also as a weapons testing lab, this war, against Russian weapons, to see how effective they were. And there's new, Tomahawk launching systems, autonomous systems, and they recently made these, and they are just now going into serial production. And some of those, obviously, they're going to want to test them, so they're going to be sending those to Ukraine, because the Tomahawk was normally sea launched, and now, of course, they have this capacity, and they've been making them, the prototypes or something for land launched, and they are now going into serial production, as I said, and they're supposed to be expedited. So, and guess why? Why would they be expediting them? And the United States is not in a war right now. Why would that happen? Okay, so anyway, it's going to happen. Okay. The USA, get this, this is also some information here. The United States is pressuring, and I've been hearing this already now for a month or two, they're pressuring the Ukraine to mobilize the younger people, like even 17 and 16 years old. You guys probably heard this too. 16-year-olds to go and fight against the Russians. Younger and younger. And a lot of this, I believe that came from information from Glenn Deason. I think he is Norwegian or whatever, but he's also a truth activist on YouTube. So you can look up some of the work of Glenn Deason. And part of giving them, it's like, why would the United States be pushing Ukraine to send even more people to war, and the younger age people to war? What does that tell you? And as an incentive, the Tomahawks are being used as an incentive. So they said, when you start sending more and more people, so you have to get a lot of numbers to be sent to fight against Russia. And when, I guess maybe there might be some kind of a quota, you get so and so many new people to go, so that we can kill Ukrainians and Russians at the same time. You get enough of them, and we will give you Tomahawk missiles. So that is what the incentive was, is to initiate this younger people going there, and we will give you these weapons. So can you imagine that? If that is true, what Glenn Deason says, I wouldn't even deny that, because he's actually very good as well. Very accurate on things like that. Anyway, people, it's, wow. It's 1 hour and 15 minutes almost. So it's another long video. And I hope that you guys can use some of the information, or at least to form your own opinion about what is really going on in much of the world, and the United States present administration and whatever. And yeah, you got to be careful, because we got to really know what's going on. I guess knowledge is king, I suppose. And thanks for joining me, everybody. And I'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.